Good morning, everybody. I am pleased to be here with you in order to present my work about how to bypass data exfiltration detection by use of malicious cryptography. It is the second part of a work that I have presented last year in Activity 2021. It is an evolution, and I'm very pleased to be with you today. So first, I'm very proud to be a speaker at PHDays. I was not able to come in due time because I have tomorrow a critical business meeting, and it was not possible due to the flight schedule to be with you here. But if you have any question or any comments, I will be be very happy to exchange with you. I wish you a very nice PhD 11 event. So here's the summary of my talk. So I will first introduce the topic, then present a state of the art of the different existing techniques and to show their limitation. I will then present a very useful tool in order to prepare this kind of attacks, which are non-trivial deniable cryptography. And I will then show how to efficiently bypass data exfiltration detection by using statistical profile and mimicking and even hijacking encrypted channel in place, for example, an existing IPsec VPN in the target environment. So nowadays, quite all attacks, especially the sophisticated attacks, aim at exfiltrating data. It can be a few bytes regarding a few credentials for login password or complete databases. And generally, the exchange of data is done between the malware and the command and control, but it can be an attacker himself. And depending on the environment, you have different constraints. It is more or less difficult for the attacker. If you have unconnected environment, you have to enforce air-gap attacks, but you will have a limited amount of data that can be exfiltrated due to a generally low data rate. But on the contrary, the target are generally a very low security awareness. On the contrary, on connected network environment, whatever may be the protocol, in fact, you have to bypass traffic surveillance. But if you are successful, you can extract a high amount of data with a high data rate. And generally, what I have observed in different networks, that the awareness regarding this kind of exfiltration techniques are rather medium. The defender himself can do either automated or semi-automated analysis, or in very specific cases, for example, forensic steps, he can perform manual or ad hoc analysis, which can include, for example, malware reverse analysis, reverse engineering. So the context is twofold. Either you consider weakly targeting attacks, and for environments where only DLP software will be in place, DLP for data leak prevention, or you want to perform strongly targeting attacks, typically APT attack. And you can suppose that a manual analysis or even the traffic of the malware can be analyzed. We will focus on connecting environment, but you can apply all the techniques presented in this talk for air-gap environment. You just have to adapt to the protocol and to the lower data rate. Once again, we want to focus on automated analysis to be bypassed, but you have to keep in mind that the defender can perform more sophisticated analysis because you are dealing with sensitive networks. So since you are generally these kind of attacks are enforced through malware, you can suppose that the malware will be analyzed statistically or dynamically, and you have to take this into account. Another constraint is to consider the communication channel in place. We do not create new communications channels or cover channel such as in air-gap attack. But if you want more information about this kind of attacks, you can drop me an email. From the attacker's perspective, he has two critical points to consider. First, he has several critical issues to consider. These issues relates to the capability of the defender to detect something and not trigger alert. And of course, to block data exfiltration. So you can have DLP software, but most of the time they're working on keywords. They don't really implement statistical profile. It means that any DLP I have tested have been successfully bypassed. They are very rather lame, preventing and detecting sophisticated data leak. Of course, you can encrypt your data, but you have two constraints. First, it is easily detected because the entropy profile is rather high. It is rarely in place. And if you want, however, use encryption, you have to manage a secret key. And the secret key can be recovered during the reverse engineering step. So you have an additional, very strong constraint. Finally, remind that in fact, all outbound traffics may be encrypted for typically IPsec VPN. And this encryption is not managed by the attacker. He cannot even access the keys. So he has to deal with and exfiltrate his data through this channel, which means that if you want to get the data, you will have a serious issue. And you have also prevent the defender to detect that you are currently exfiltrating data, or at least, but even if it is not wishable, you have to delay his efforts. So, the aim of the present work is not to perform attack, of course, but it is to evaluate what could be the evolution of data leak and malware attacker. I have precisely in mind some APT attacks, or sophisticated ransomware. And the aim is to see how these attacks could evolve in order to find, before the attacker, mitigation and protection techniques. I have chosen to present each attack brick one by one for sake of clarity, but of course you can combine all of them, and whenever you combine them, in fact, you obtain very sophisticated and powerful attacks. The code are non-public, but since they are developed for industrial purpose and analysis purposes. So first, let us present the state of the art and the technical background. I mean, what are the already known exfiltration techniques. In fact, whenever you consider communication, I mean data exfiltration, you have to consider two issues or two aspects. And I will take here the most used terminology from NATO. You have either communication security, which focus on the security of the data themselves, but regardless of the channel. So for that purpose, you have cryptography, electromagnetic security, physical security of the environment. But a clever attacker will also want not only to protect the data exfiltrated, but also to protect the fact that there is an exfiltration. It means that we want to protect the existence of a secret communication and then protect the channel. And in this respect, the most known, the most famous technique is steganography, but you also can consider electromagnetic security, traffic flow security, routing protocol, and so on. And in this study, we have combined both geos. We want to protect the information, but also the channel itself. It means that any defender cannot see or guess that currently data exfiltration takes place. So let us compare cryptography versus steganography. On the left, you have steganography. You have cryptography, sorry. So you transform any plain text data into non-plain text data, encrypted data with a secret key. And the data, once encrypted, looks like random data. And we suppose in the security analysis that to recover plain text data, you have to recover the key, which is supposed to be intractable. And even the algorithm is supposed to be known. On the right, you have steganography. Steganography, you have here the complete process. So you take data, you encrypt them, you take a cover image, it may be an image, an audio file, or whatever, a video file. You will embed to produce a stego image, you send it to Bob, and Bob will extract and decrypt. In fact, if it is mandatory to have no visual difference between cover image and stego image, in fact, since you embed, you modify some bits or some data. And all the issue is to modify without too much altering the statistical profile, which is rather complicated in real cases. Let us compare now the security of both techniques. Whenever you use cryptography, you produce random data. So using entropy test, it is very easy to detect a peak of entropy. For example, plain text data for most languages is around 4. Once you packed or you compress the data, the entropy rises to 6. And whenever you encrypt, the entropy will be maximal and you will have an entropy of 8. So it means that a simple entropy profile test, you are able to detect that encrypted data are exfiltrated. On the right, you have different results showing, in fact, I will summarize that. You will find, of course, references in the bibliography of the slides, but you can, steganography has a very low rate if you want to remain undetected. It means that less than 3% of the data can be used in order to embed secret data. You have a very limited number of data that can be hidden if you want to remain undetected. 3% means a few bytes at best. So it means that regarding the context we have considered, in fact, we cannot use cryptography or steganography for an efficient data leak or data exfiltration. So this is the reason why it is necessary to consider more sophisticated techniques, and I will consider malicious cryptography and malicious mathematics. In fact, it is an emerging field that I have created in 2012, coming from the Jung and Jung's cryptovirology, but it was very limited because, in fact, they only consider the case of extortion malware, which was a prefiguration of ransomware. It is not that you can do more. In fact, the malicious cryptography and malicious mathematics is the interconnection of the attack techniques on one side and the cryptology and mathematics on the other side for their mutual benefit. You can do a lot of things. I have just given a few examples from super malware that are able to propagate optimally, to enforce sophisticated self-protection techniques, or to protect or become invisible. You can also use complexity theory or computability theory to design really undetected malware. You can use malware to perform cryptanalysis operation. You can do recon in target environment. For example, we have designed a few years ago techniques that enable malware to identify the kind of the series of processor and be able to choose whether they attack or not, depending on the brand or the model of the processor. And finally, malicious mathematics include also the design of cryptographic trapdoor. If you want to have a clever example and sophisticated example, have a look to our presentation of Black Hat Europe in 2017. We have designed a block encryption algorithm very similar to the AES with the same key size and with a trapdoor that enabled to break the cipher in less than 30 seconds. So, let us now consider non-trivial deniable cryptography. It is important because most of the attack will be performed by means of malware. So we have the risk that the malware can be analyzed and reveal the secret of the attack. So deniable cryptography consists in producing two different plain text from a single ciphertext with two different keys. This is one of the applications. But the only known case is trivial. By use of one-time paths, it supports that you use random sequence as long as the two different plain text, so two different random sequence, and you XOR them bitewise. It is not possible since you have to embed the random sequences into the malware code, and of course there will be recovered during the reverse engineering step. So we managed to solve this problem by using deterministic algorithm with short keys. Short means the same size as usual encryption algorithm, from 128 to 256 bits. And we do the same. It means that from a given ciphertext and from the same algorithm, using two different keys, key 1 or key 2, we can produce two different plain text, P1 and P2. And this scheme has been extended to 3 plain text, but of course it can be extended for a larger number of plain text. So, from a cryptographic security perspective, in fact, we have proven their security. So we cannot guess P1 and P2 from the ciphertext. Or even if we know P1 from P2 or conversely, it is not possible to guess one from the other. The number of applications are quite awesome, and we are currently developing them at Ops4Sec. And it comes from code protection, anti-forensic techniques, and multiple communication channel. So let us consider a short demo. So we have here the ciphertext here, the execution, the binaries, and the two keys, just to show the ciphertext, to prove that indeed it is a ciphertext, and here the two keys. As you can see, there are very short keys. So now let us decrypt. So okay, and we do the same with the second key. And what you can see that the two plain texts are different. Yeah, here's the first plain text and the second one. They are totally different. So it means that we can, from one ciphertext, using the same small algorithm and considering two different keys, we can produce two different plain text. So let us come back to the slides. What are the applications? In fact, in our context, we have an environment with a binary code, which is encrypted. And the binary code is able to perform analysis and to determine very precisely, we have a very complex different protocol. They are able to determine whether they are currently analyzed, for example, in virtual machine, in DBI, sandbox, and so on, or if they are in a real environment. May this environment be physical or virtual. So the malware is communicating with a command and control or with the attacker. And if the malware say, okay, I am currently analyzed, the one key is sent, and the malware is decrypting itself as a plain text, which is either an innocent-looking malware or plain text data. But on the contrary, you will receive a key that will produce the real malware. So it means that since the analyst cannot determine, it cannot block the identification of current analysis, it will never have access to the real malware. So you have here the verbal description, and what we have to stress on the fact that, of course, we have to embed and to consider secure and complex communication protocol between the malware and the CNC. We have used fingerprint, time index, obfuscation, random connection, environment condition, and it means that it is impossible to simulate this communication protocol. And of course, everything has been implemented in such a way that the malware itself is clueless with respect to the most important protocol parameters. So now that we have a malware which is able to enforce this attack without being detecting and analyzed, let us see how to enforce our techniques. So the very first case, we have plenty of examples, and we did a lot of experiments. We first consider metadata. And it is very interesting because most DLPs do not check metadata. And so they don't even consider, for example, some format languages or internals. So you can do a lot of things by considering these internals or these formats and metadata. It means that documents, Excel, PDF, and so on, are very interesting to be considered a natural carrier for data exfiltration. Of course, you can even be more clever by splitting your exfiltration through different documents. Here, a very simple case. I have taken one PDF file, an academic paper on the internet, and I have hidden here a secret message, which is, however, in plain text. And you can open the PDF. There is no alert. Of course, here I have let the data in plain text in order for visibility purposes. We can apply what is coming next. Of course, if you suppose that there are some document integrity in place, so you can create those documents from scratch, it means that you will bypass the integrity checking. So the next step is not to consider plain text, as in the previous example, but to mimic entropy and statistical profile. Why? Because generally, DLPs could, most of them do not, could enforce very sophisticated statistical and entropy analysis. So you must mimic, for your exfiltrated data, you must mimic what an innocent-looking document would look like. So you can, the general approach, you have a key-dependent transformation of the data. You must prevent any manual analysis in order to recover the secret keys, of course, and you can be able to mimic and simulate any target statistical environment. In the rest of the talk, we will focus on the most simple distribution you can consider, n-gram profiles, but we have currently worked on more sophisticated profiles. So, for the security management, in fact, if you use a key-dependent transformation, for example, encryption, or a statistical profile mimicking, you have to protect the key. Just suppose once again that the malware will be analyzed. So the solution we have developed is use random keys generated from the environment. And in this case, we consider, for example, key size of 40 bits, which is large enough in order to prevent exhaustive search for the attacker and for every file used in order to exfiltrate data. Of course, it is possible to use encryption algorithm with backdoor. And it is very convenient because in this case, you can use a longer key size. So, since it is rather complicated mathematics, let us sketch the general approach. You have data to exfiltrate which have a given data profile. In fact, for example, PDF or and so on. And you want to exfiltrate data by mimicking some target data profile. For example, text file. You want to exfiltrate PDF under the form of text file. For that, you have to consider an intermediate profile, and the combination of the two statistical profile will enable to create document following the target data profile. So in fact, from a mathematical point of view, we have to consider what we call the joint entropy profile in order to combine them into the resulting and target data profile. So any book of information theory will give you the basics, the introduction about what joint entropy profile is. So let us consider examples. It is very lame, but it is for you just to understand easily. Just imagine I want to embed this secret message. Of course, we would first encrypt it, but it is just for the purpose of illustration. The result of transformation towards different text distribution gives, or a second order Markov distribution, you will have this text. Of course, if you read it, you guess that something is odd. But if you consider a first order Markov word distribution, you now obtain something that it is closer, far closer from the English. So these two very simple examples show very simply how we can proceed. But recently, we have achieved embedding rate of nearly 30%, which is far higher than any undetectable steganography techniques, and as that without detection. It means that it's very, very efficient. So we can have a different evolution. And with more complex model and distribution, we have managed, so they are far more complex to explain, but we succeed in defeating even manual analysis. It means that even if the analysis takes time to read every document, it will not be able to guess that one document more than one other is containing something special. So if you want an example, I will send you a sample. So there are a lot of possibilities, and you have here what can be done very simply. And at the present time, it is impossible to prevent this. And as far as you implement and consider these techniques, and no DLP tool is able to detect this nowadays, and it is, I don't think they will ever do. So now let us deal with the last case when we have hijacked encrypted channel in place. So most of the time, for example, in sensitive military network, you have the attacker, the malware, has to cope with an existing IPsec VPN. Generally, it means I will think to former known attacks, like in Iran. In fact, we suppose that the malware is put into the target environment with a USB stick, but now he has to cope with the IPsec channel for the data transmission between two sensitive entities. So we are going to use covert channels, and this technique is very efficient, even on very complex traffic. The first development was made in 2008 and has been updated last year. And the first version has been presented at CanSec West 2011. So we are considering the ESP in transport and tunnel mode. So the slide just to recall what we are talking about, but I suppose that you are very familiar with this. So in fact, in this part, it is encrypted. So even if you transmit something, from the attacker's perspective, we try to wiretap the channel, you will have encrypted data. So here you have, we consider ICMP ping packets. So, but you can of course consider similar other data. But this method is simple and illustrative enough, and it works, it still works. So the general attack scheme, you have the two entities exchanging data with an encrypted channel, IPsec. And the attacker can only wiretap, observe the channel, but he cannot decrypt the data since he has not the key. So we are going to use a pinglex method and an optimized one. In fact, first we have built a one-to-one correspondence between data character to evade and ICMP packet size, because most of the protocols do not practice padding. It means that the packet size is something which is that can vary. So the aim is to do like Morse code, to code data to evade in order to use the different size of the packet. So sorry for the interruption, but there are some meteorological issues. So in fact, each character we want to exfiltrate is encoded by a packet size. In order to be able to extract, in fact, we use 5 repetition code in our case. So we repeat every character key time, in our case, key or 5. Of course, you can play on the parameter key. We use dedicated traffic tags like begin and top stack, and we have implemented other optimization in order to increase the capability of decoding. So here it is a simple version. For example, a packet size of 32 bits will return this character, and so on. This new equivalence has been built in last year in order to adapt to some IPsec routers compared to the 2008 version. So, on the attacker, we passively observe the packet flow. We extract suitable packet size, and we use a maximum likelihood decoding due to the 5 repetition code. And of course, we decode once we have this. The interest of 5 repetition code is that they are very powerful in most cases. Of course, they are rather resistant up to a certain limit to noise, because your transmission can have noise and you have the normal transmission of data, but you can use some optimization in order to increase your decoding efficiency. Just imagine that we want to code the sentence "Salut, comment ça va aujourd'hui? How are you today?" And we are going to show different results depending on the traffic load with respect to the time. In fact, here you have no residual error, and to extract the data, you need to transmit. It takes 145 seconds. Normally, it should be detected by good IDS. Here we have a random load of 1 kilobit per second, and the total transmission time is a bit higher. But in this case, we have tested it. It is no longer detected by IDS. Another case with random burst. We have still a few errors, but it is possible to cope with the final message, and with random burst. So in any cases, we were able to recover the sentences, and with manual verification to access to the message. So there are possibly other optimization, but once again, if you it would need more maths, but you can use more sophisticated data synchronization or tagging techniques. Here, for example, you have another version from the better and one-to-one character size mapping, and so on. So if you are interested in the mathematical description and the proof of efficient encoding, you have everything here. You have different other evolution. I will let you read this. And just to conclude, in order to keep time, so if you want to extrapolate data without detection, IDS, DLP, flow analysis is still easy. But you have to consider very sophisticated techniques in order to remain undetected. I would like to stress on the huge potential of malicious mathematics cryptography. And I'm very concerned about the evolution of new malware technology, if it's not the case. But I'm convinced that we will have to face attacks which are quite impossible to detect, provided that the attacker is mastering these malicious and mathematics and cryptography techniques. It means that many things are no longer at the security, I mean, but detection techniques, but at the security architecture, data assessment, tight right management. It means the computer security at environment level. There is a solution, but which is very time consuming. It would consist in systematically recording and transcoding all outbound data. So thank you for attention. Once again, I was very sorry not to be here with you. And if you have questions and answer, please send me through email. I will very happy to exchange with you and to give you answer and references. I have a very nice PHDays 11 event. And thanks to the organizer for having selecting my paper. Bye.